Everybody. We are on session 5 of a 5-part series of Clear Equals Kind, Essentials of Classroom Relationships. And we're going to dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about the second 2 of the 4 hard behaviors, those bothersome behaviors, and what to do about it. All right, so let's get to it. Today, we'll talk about, we'll kind of finish up what we started talking about at the end of last episode about what you can do to address these behaviors, all of them. And we'll talk about the preparation of the environment. Yeah, we know about preparing ourselves. Are we regulated? Are our unmet needs being met so that we could show up in the best way possible for the children that we love? But also, there's another place where we can enter in to make adjustments and to support children in the way that really is helpful and that works for them, and that entry is the environment, what we can do to the environment. Some approaches and philosophies believe that the environment is another teacher, right? Not just us, but the environment, and the child's interaction with the environment is an important part to pay a lot of attention to. How we curate our environment for the child to be successful and to be happy and to thrive and have a great time and learn, right? So we'll talk about preparation of the environment. We'll talk a little bit about teaching problem solving skills so that in our classroom and beyond, they've had practice in figuring out what to do when things get difficult. They've had practice. We're kind of helping them build that muscle, if you will. Then we'll dive into that routine, not minding behavior and what to do. We'll talk about choices and consequences and how that relates to our effective and respectful, kind and clear support for children when they are in that routine, not minding behavior. Next, we'll talk about aggressive behavior and some myths about aggressive behavior. So we'll talk about that and what to do when that behavior is clearly aggressive with an intention to cause harm to another person or to something, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit about recovery time and our own intention when we help children get to a place to recover from a situation that is causing sensory overload or causing their behavior choices to go sideways, right? Recovery time, we'll talk about that. And then there'll be time to set a professional action plan in place. What do you plan to do? What were your big moments from today? And that will be it. So let's go. Okay, quick check-in. Find your pause button and hit pause and write down, what do you remember from the last episode? Were you able to see in your classroom environment those not minding behaviors? Were you able to have an opportunity to practice the tools and techniques around that? What about self-indulgent behaviors? Did you see those? Were you able to try out those tools and see what happens? Was it easier to ignore? Knowing that, oh, this is self-indulgent behavior and ignoring is really the best thing here. How did that go? What did that feel like, right? Okay, so I'm curious about that. Also, I'm curious about inner perspective. Were you able to pause and dig into and get curious about what the child's inner perspective might be? What is the story that they're telling themselves? What about our own inner perspective? What story am I telling myself, right? Okay, so hit pause, pen to paper, a reminder and kind of a check-in of what you reviewed in last webinar. And when you're ready, come on back. Okay, we're back. Take a deep breath. All right, now this is the triangle. I love this image so much because it's simple. It's something that you can write. You can just draw a triangle on a sticky note and put it somewhere in your classroom to help you remember, okay, where are the entry points where I can assist children to grow in their skills, right? So let's talk about it. So the first part, the first entryway is the child, which we'll talk about. It's the top of the triangle. Are there skills that you can teach into? Are there stories that you can tell? True stories through the oral tradition, or are there books out there that would be helpful? Do you have a social story that you've created that you can tell that teaches into a skill that might be lagging? how to do a thing, how to wait for a turn, how to ask for a turn, how to push a chair in when you're finished at a table, how to roll up your rug, how to unpack your lunch, how to pack your lunch away. All those kinds of skills. There's so many things that a child is learning, so many things. No wonder they're exhausted and fall apart at the end of the day. Right? If we were learning at the speed of a young child as an adult, just imagine how we would be. It gives us a moment to extend some grace to the child, right? Okay, so the child is one entryway. Another entryway is ourselves, right? So am I prepared? How do I prepare myself? Can I make an adjustment in myself, in my expectations, in my tone of voice, in the things that I say, in the way that I connect with them at neutral times, right? Is there some information that I don't have that I need to learn to be able to support this particular child in this moment in time, right? So there are loads of ways that we can support children into their skills, into their skill growing, and the same for us. And it takes a lot of vulnerability and courage and ego in check to be honest about that. I need to practice taking a deep breath. I need to practice tapping into the inner reality. I could connect at neutral times more. I need a workshop on how to support children on the spectrum. I need to learn more about sensory integration, right? Okay, and then the other entryway is the environment, right? You see, they carry equal weight, right? So that's something I just want you to think about in the next few weeks or so, about how each of these carry equal importance. I don't know. What do you think about that? All right, so we're going to talk about the environment and what you can do to adjust the environment to help the child be successful, to promote independence, to support conflict resolution, to support emotional regulation and emotional intelligence, to support skill building and academics, to support refinement of movement and deepening skills of the senses, right? So we spend a lot of time creating our environment, curating our environment, if you will, to create a space that fits into our own philosophy, our school's philosophy, our approach. So what does that look like? And how can we do things differently? Okay, so if we're looking at this, you can prepare the environment with several things in mind. So the first one in this point might cause some controversy. That's all right. I'm leaning into it. But the idea that babies and toddlers never misbehave. And you may be a toddler or baby, an infant teacher, and you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, they do. Have you not been in my classroom? Yes, I have. And yes, it does look like behaviors that are not welcome, we would like for them to stop doing that thing that they're doing. Yes. But let's take a point of view. I just invite you to take this point of view. If you're an infant or toddler teacher, in the next several weeks or so, what if we had a perspective that they're not misbehaving? They're not trying to get on our nerves. They're not trying to hurt another person. They're not trying to whatever, but they're figuring out how to be a human, right? They haven't been on the planet very long. So they're figuring out and they're learning. They're putting together so many synapses in their brains. I mean, we could just go off on a neuro tangent here, but that's a different class. So let's come back here. They're learning so much. So they're figuring out, oh, if I pull my friend's hair, ooh, what happens? Look at that. Listen to that. That was really loud. Oh, I pulled their hair and that happened. Oh, I pushed that down. Oh, look what happened. Right? So they're experimenting within their environment through relationships, through their interaction with materials, through their interaction with us. They're trying to figure out how things work, right? So with that in mind, if we can keep that in the front of mind, it allows us to extend a little more grace and get curious on, okay, what skill needs to come next? What's my plan for tomorrow or for this afternoon or in the next 5 minutes that I can do to help this child learn, right? Okay, so the next point is when you're preparing the environment, consider what is the child experiencing in their needs around sleep. Are they sleepy? Is there a new baby at home and maybe they woke up several times during the night last night, or something's happening and their sleep is disrupted, right? I remember a time when I was working with the school, and someone in the staff lounge burned their lunch, and it was during nap time, and the fire alarm went off. That was a really hard day because we had about 40 nappers throughout the school. So wow, that just yeah, I don't want to think about that day. However, that their sleep was disrupted. The rest of the afternoon was a struggle because their environment had been disrupted, right? Okay. So that story, just to drive home the point that all kinds of things can happen with a child and their sleep. Not only sleep, but diet, right? What did they have for breakfast before they came in? Was it super rushy, getting into the car to get to school? Did they get a Pop-Tart in the back seat, or a Power Bar, or maybe they forgot lunch, right? What's in their lunchbox? What are they consuming? Are they eating snack, not eating snack, right? Food is really important, right? So is bathroom. Have they gone to the bathroom lately? Do they need to pee? Do they need to poop? That has a direct impact on behavior. I know y'all know this, right? Next thing to remember around preparing the environment is the sensory load. What are we creating that puts an unnecessary load on a young child and their sensory experience, right? Take a look at, in the next week or two, take a look at your classroom and just get down on your knees or sit down on the floor and look at the space from the perspective of a child, right? Because we're tall, so we see things, we're taller than children, right? We may not be too tall, but we're taller than a toddler probably. When we get to that eye level and look around and try to imagine what it is that they see, most of the materials are down in the lower quadrant of the classroom, right? So if we take a look at that, the sensory load is more than for the child is the sensory load for the child is more than the sensory load for us when we stand taller, right? So at our eye level is not all of the inviting materials that we've created for them to engage with or to connect with or to be excited about putting their hands on, right? So take a look at that, right? Pause in your classroom, get to the level where they might be, and notice, are there places I can edit, right? Do I have so much stuff on the wall where it's required for them to look up to see the art or to see the mobile hanging down or the art that we have throughout our space? What about lighting? How's the lighting, right? Do we have overhead fluorescence, which can be really agitating to the young child and especially agitating to children with disabilities? So consider that. What are your lighting options? Do you have natural light coming in? Some of us don't have the flexibility of having windows or many windows or lamplight, or we're can be constrained by the flexibility that we have around lighting and space, and where's a wall, where's where's a big column in the middle of our classroom. We have to get creative and take a look at, how does this impact the sensory load that the children in my classroom have to manage moment to moment? Is there something I could do to shift and change that? Do we need music now? What type of music would be helpful now? What type of music is kind of aggravating or agitating to young children, right? So our skills as an observer, it is key. If I recommend that so much, to give yourself permission and a responsibility to have time to observe every single day. And I know you're thinking, Amy, I don't have time to do that. I'm going from here to there to here to there to here to there. I've got 2.5-year-olds. I've got 3-year-olds. They're running around everywhere. I can't sit and observe. Okay. Here's a request from me to you. Try it out. And over the next week, give yourself 1 minute at the top of every hour or at the bottom of every hour, you decide, where maybe you use a time timer to help you. Okay, this is a minute, or count to yourself, count to 60, where you go to a space in your classroom where you can sit down and observe. So you're going to give a presentation or a lesson or have a conversation with children about what does observing look like. I knew a teacher that I have such respect for, and she had a red piece of felt, like a rectangular piece of felt, so simple. And she told the children, check out this red piece of felt. When I put it over my shoulder, and it just draped across her shoulder like a sock or something, that means I'm not available. That means I'm observing. Here's what observing is. Here's what I'm doing. That's my work at that time. So I'm not available unless it's an emergency. It's super helpful when you have another adult in the room that could be on in a different way when you have the red felt on. And that work, you're on in a different way. The purpose of that observation is key, so that you can see a snapshot in time in your classroom day. What's happening during this transition? What might their experience be, right? Sometimes when we don't give ourselves permission to have that observation time, we miss out on what could be obvious things that we can do to shift and change, right? During that observation time, you might look and notice, oh yeah, that shelf's in a weird place. Or, I wonder what would happen if I moved these two tables apart or together. I wonder if I moved this table or the books over here. Oh, I notice over in this area is really super loud, and it's kind of activating to some kids who are sensory sensitive to sound. All of those observations come when you can pause a minute and just give yourself a beat to check things out. Create a list of edits that you want to make, or notice that's working great. Don't change it. Leave it. This is the perfect spot for our cozy corner. I notice this child is spending a lot of time in this particular area or with these particular children. Is it time for a new lesson? Is it time for a new experience, right? It's a really amazing gift to give to yourself, to spark your creativity, to spark your curiosity. Yeah. So a minute an hour. You can start with a minute an hour, and I encourage you to increase that, right? Imagine 5 whole minutes when you're uninterrupted, able to observe and see what's happening in the classroom environment. Wouldn't that be nice? It's possible. I believe it. Okay, so that to be said, next in preparing the environment is considering their pace, right? We've talked a little bit about how children are still growing and learning in their processing skills, and you may have some children in your classroom who have some processing delays, who need a little extra time to process what we're saying, or a different approach or an adaptation so that they can understand what's happening in the environment, what's happening in relationships, right? So consider the individual child's pace. Some children may be more quick than others. So that's how it is. Human beings are unique and individual. So expect that there will be a difference, that some children will need more time to transition from here to there. What adaptation can you make within the environment to help that child who needs more time to transition when it's time to, say, pack away lunch, right? That adaptation might be something as simple as going to them and putting your hand on their table, or having a conversation, quick reminder, we've got 5 more minutes for lunch. I notice you've got a lot of lunch left. What part are you going to eat next before we have to pack away? I notice the time timer is getting, the red on the timer is getting smaller. We're about to finish lunch. So some children might need that cue that, oh yeah, I need to eat. I'm having so much fun talking with my friend. I forgot to eat. And then, oh my gosh, we have to pack up and go outside. No. You've had that happen in your classroom, I'm sure. Okay, so all of that to be said, to consider their pace, right? It may take some children longer time to process what it is that we said and what the expectations are. Okay, feel free to pause right now. And if you want to go back and think about what is your plan for observation, what challenge do you want to give yourself? What opportunity do you want to give yourself? How are you going to have that conversation with your co-teacher that, okay, Amy said, top of the hour, 1 minute. How about I take the even number hours and then you take the odd number hours for observation? That might be an interesting idea so that your co-teacher can also have an opportunity. They may see something different that you might not have seen. Okay, so what's your plan around preparation of your environment? Okay. Now we're coming back. It's time to talk about teaching problem-solving skills. Yes, children will not be in our classrooms forever and ever. We are supporting them to grow in their skills so that they don't need us anymore. Right? We would love to get to a place, an ideal place in our classroom where the children carry on as if we didn't exist. Can you imagine? If we prepared the environment, we taught into lagging skills, we prepared ourselves, where we could sit back and the children are engaging with each other. They're engaging with the materials, they're engaging with their own self and carrying on and learning, and they're happy and they're engaged and they're excited of learning. And we sit back and let it roll, let it happen, right? We give we give the children the gift of us getting out of their way. That's a big something to think about. How can you get out of their way more and more? Okay, that's probably a longer conversation we can have later. Okay, so back to problem solving skills. You notice that there's a struggle happening. Maybe there's an argument happening between two children or something like that. Let's go with that. An important place to begin is there's no blame, there's no innocence on either child. It just is. It's just happening. It's part of their process. It's part of their process of figuring out how to be human, how to be successful and happy and confident and independent, and all of those words that we would use to describe our ideal classroom back in episode 1, right? So when we enter in, it's important to not go ahead and create a story. Of course, this is happening. Of course, this is the child that started it. This is the child that did it, right? Now, I want to underline the importance of this because I've seen it happen where a child has had their name called out again and again and again because they were in trouble or they did something that the teacher wanted them to stop, right? And the teacher was saying their name over and over and over again. Stop doing that, get off the table, quit running, stop screaming. And we're attaching their name to that behavior. Now, it could happen where, something happens, maybe there's a crash that happens, and then we try to figure out, what happened? And a child will say, Abby did it. Abby wasn't even there that day. Or Abby was in the bathroom, or, right? If that child's name is connected to all the things that fall apart in the classroom, then other children will begin to place blame or innocence on a particular child as they follow our lead. Powerful, huh? So it's important. No blame, no innocence. It just is. Okay, next. Check out the stress level when we're teaching into the problem-solving skills. Can we lighten their load? Can we turn the lights down during a high transition time? Can we put on music with a clear beat to keep us carrying on and going along, right? What music do we have during calm times during the day, during dance parties time of the day, right? But music is so powerful in that way. So is lighting. So is, let's not forget, our olfactory sense, right? You might love your diffuser, right? And you've got cinnamon or frankincense or lavender, sweet orange all the time. And that's lovely. And maybe it could be activating for some children who are sensory sensitive to smells. So that might be something that might be a stressor that you didn't intend. So just check it out. So notice what could be causing stress in your classroom. Can you shift and change and edit? Right. Next, when you're teaching problem solving skills, remember to use, channel Janet Lansbury and describe what you see. Narrate, sportscast. You both want that. Red marker, you both want to play with that at the same time. I notice that. I see your eyebrows are knit together. You're crying. So describe what it is that you see. You seem upset, right? Describe what you see that would lead you to believe that they're upset, because they might tell you, I'm not upset. Okay. What do you see? I see your hands are in a fist. I hear you. I hear your voice is really loud right now. I see all the Legos on the floor. Say what it is and describe what you see. Get this, more often than not, when we just describe what we see, the children, when they've had some practice and rehearsal, will begin to tend to that, right? Oh, I notice all the Legos on the floor. They may begin to put them back in the bin, right? Without us saying, put the Legos back in the bin, because they know. So the narration or the description that we add to that environment, that gives them an opportunity to go, oh yeah, they go in the bin. Or do they go into routine not minding behavior, and they just go over there because they don't want to put the Legos back in the bin? Then what do you do? Okay, so describing what you see. Next, prompt the use of words to state the problem and what it is that you want. So this is when we're coming in to help children learn the skill of conflict resolution, of negotiation. What is it that you would like a turn with the car track, and you just got the car track out. You're not finished with your turn and you really want a turn. Would you like an idea? So you ask if they want suggestions, because they might not, or it might come to them. The solution may come to them, right? So this and the next point here on the slide, helping them figure out a solution and asking if they want suggestions, is really respectful and helpful, right? So you give them the opportunity to tap into a solution that they already know. They just maybe forgot for a minute, right? I would like a turn. Please, may I have a turn? Can I play with you, right? They may already have that in their repertoire. And if they don't, and you ask if they want suggestions, that's teaching into maybe a lagging skill, teaching into how to solve the problem that they're having right now, right? It's really helpful to ask if they want suggestions. Ties into how we're teaching children and supporting their idea and their skill in understanding and how they think and how they see consent unfolding in the classroom. Okay, next, this one can be hard. There may not be a solution right away. Oh, well, wow, that's really hard. Well, let's come back to this tomorrow, or let's come back to this after we have a snack, or let's come back to this after we come in from outside, or let's come back to this. So you can help children know that often, sometimes, there's not a solution right away. We might have to go and think about it, or go and regulate and think about it and come back, right? It's hard to come up with a solution when you are dysregulated. If you're 3 or you're 4 or you're 14 or you're 44, that can be difficult. Okay, let's take a pause and write down your thoughts about that. What do you think about the triangle? Are there areas in your classroom or struggles in your classroom that could be addressed either through the child, the environment, or yourself? Are there some adjustments that you can make in one of those points of the triangle that could be useful in a struggly situation? Okay, so I'd like for you to think about that. And I'd like for you to think about the problem solving skills, right? Are there some skills in your classroom right now that could use a little oomph from you? How can you support children learning how to solve their own problems or to help each other solve their own problems? Okay, so find your pause button, take a pause, pen to paper, and come back when you're ready. Okay, we're back. Deep breath. Now let's talk about the second two. I know you guys are ready for it. So we're going to talk about routine not minding. That's when, you remember, they know what to do, they just don't do it. And then aggressive behavior. And we'll talk about the specifics of that. First, routine not minding. So that's when a child refuses to do what the common expectations. You know, they know their routine. You know, they know the rules on the playground, the guidelines, the expectations, and they just don't do it. They refuse to carry them out. Right. So some examples of that might be maybe children know that on the playground, we don't climb on the chain link fence because it's a safety thing. Or we know that sticks stay on the ground, or we know that nature has a place, right? We know that that when we pick the herbs from the herb garden, then this is what we do with them, right? Or this is the potion making area. Not everywhere. Chalk is for the sidewalk, not the fence, right? So whatever expectations you have, either on the playground or in the classroom, you probably have already talked to children about that. You've had a practice on what that looks like. You've let them have a turn on, taking turns, or show me where we use chalk. Show me where we can climb. Show me, you've given them opportunity to let you know that they know, right? Okay. Sometimes they know, but they just don't do it because, sometimes it's worth it, right? That fence looks so inviting. I'm feeling really strong in my body right now. I'm just going to go climb that fence. I have chalk in my hand. The sidewalk is way over there. And I just want to see what happens when I put chalk on the bark of a tree because I'm curious, right? So they're still learning what happens in the world when you do things. And sometimes it can come across like routine not minding, right? It may be when you wrote that list of bothersome behaviors in the last episode, you can go flip back in your notes and go, oh yeah, that behavior is a routine not minding. Or there may be new behaviors that are coming up that you go, oh yeah, that happens in my classroom all the time. So let's talk about what to do when that happens. What can I do? So the first one is a little bit of pre-work, if you will. And this is when you practice making fun choices beforehand. I bet you $1 that you are already having many opportunities during your classroom day for children to make choices, right? Would you like to sit here or here? Would you like to play with this or this? Would you like to have snack with this friend or that friend? Right? So there are lots of choices to be made throughout the course of a day, right? Get this, when that's happening, you can assist by inserting the language around that. So you're saying things like, would you like to sit at this table or this table? What's your choice? What choice will you make? You made a choice, or you made a decision, or we decided. So you're inserting that kind of language into the common, conversations of the classroom, so that when a routine not minded behavior happens, we're using language that they're familiar with and they have a context for, right? It's easier for a child who is dysregulated at a time to connect with language that they're really familiar with, right? And we know we're going to use as few words as possible. So we're going to use those key words like choice, decision, right? We decided, you decided, your choice, our choice, right? Okay, so practice making fun choices beforehand. Take note of how many choices do you offer children throughout the day. Now, way back in episode 1, we talked about adult-centered and child-centered. Now, if you tend to be more adult-centered, then it could be that there aren't a lot of choices that you extend for children to practice making choices, making decisions. Note to self. Okay, I tend to do that. Let me give more opportunity for them to practice strengthening that muscle of making a decision, of making a choice between this or that, this or that. A fun game that I like to play, it's so silly and so fun, and I kind of stumbled upon it by accident. Don't you love when those things happen? You didn't mean to, but you go, oh my gosh, that was awesome. Okay, so here's how it went. So we were at I was having lunch with 4 other children at the table, and we were, having a conversation because that, during meals is when we're social, usually in our culture, right? So let's practice doing that. And I started a game, this or that. So I turned, it's like, Abby, okay, this or that, worm or beetle, which one? So didn't think about it, but I noticed, oh, interesting. That's how I would offer a choice when routine, not minded behavior would happen, right? You have a choice, beetle or worm, which one, right? So it gives them recognition that they are in a decision-making position. They have power. They can decide beetle or worm. Ah, worm? All right, now it's your turn. And then that person turned to the next person and said, Millie, chocolate or vanilla? Chocolate, yeah. What would you decide? Chocolate? Okay, I'm chocolate too. Oh, you're vanilla? Oh, cool. Okay. Oh, you're worm? Oh, you're beetle, right? So we can, one, understand that each person may make a different choice, and we are practicing making choices. So worm, beetle, chocolate, vanilla, pepperoni pizza, cheese pizza, spaghetti and meatballs, spaghetti Alfredo. I don't know. I mean, you can give lots of different categories. Kitten or puppy? That's a tough one. If you had to choose both, but that's not a choice. It's kitten or puppy. Which one? It gives them an opportunity to make a decision even when the decision is difficult. Because we all know it's a difficult decision between kitten or puppy. I mean, what would you choose? I'd have to think about that one a while. I think I'd go puppy. Okay. Interesting. This or that. And that's a fun way to insert. It's great to use during times, maybe lagging times, or when you're waiting for everybody to get their coats on to be able to go outside, to make those to have those games there. And that they're practicing their skill of making a choice, making a decision, and we're inserting that language during that fun, lighthearted time. Okay, so there you go. That's practicing making fun choices beforehand. Next is work on one behavior at a time. And we put that in because, get this, often with some of these different types of behaviors, we'll see them in constellations. And I use that to describe, if you see a child who is struggling with routine not minding behavior, you'll see several different not minding behaviors kind of happen with greater frequency, right? So there maybe, if I'm thinking about their inner perspective, maybe they're trying to exert power of decision, or where do I get to decide, or their own agency or their own freedom, right? So it could be that the inner work of the child at that moment, who is doing all the routine not minding that is really getting on our nerves, but the work that they're trying to do is to figure out how to make decisions, right? Where can I push? What can I be in control of and what not? So when you see a constellation of routine not minding behaviors, you want to work on one at a time. Otherwise, you might fall into that pattern of when you're saying that child's name 15, 20, 30 times a day because they're doing all the things. You see what I mean? So work on one behavior at a time. We're going to work on this morning transition first. We're going to get that figured out, get that skill, and then we'll work on the transition to outside. And then we'll work on the transition at the end of the day, right? Key to this is connecting with the other adults that you're working with. What's our plan? Which time of day, which routine not binding behavior is having the greatest impact? Let's focus on that first. Got that one? Let's move on to the next one, right? Okay, so that part is making a plan. So you're making a plan with your colleagues, and as your child is ready, you can make a plan with them, okay? Hey, so Millie, we're about to go outside in about 5 minutes. What's the first thing that we do? So you're, right, we pack away lunch, right? Okay, we pack away lunch. Where does our lunchbox go? In our cubby, right? And then what? We get our coat and boots and we line up on the circle, or whatever it is that's your expectation. Be thoughtful and mindful. How many steps can this child hold in their head? Is there a helpful visual aid that children can, okay, pack away lunch, I'm gonna pack away lunch. What's next? Oh, okay, get my lunchbox in my cubby. Okay, what's next? So you can give some tools for them to help themselves know what comes next after this, see? Okay, so helping a child make the plan. What's the expectation, right? You're outside, you're about to come inside, and coming inside has been problematic, right? So perhaps while you're outside, you come alongside that child and say, okay, we're about to go inside. What's your plan when we go inside? What would you like to choose from a shelf? What is your first thing that you would like to do? What are you excited about? You know, asking the questions to help them formulate a plan. That could be really helpful to them if their struggle behavior is coming from a sense of anxiety or indecision, or I don't know what to do, you know, tapping into what their inner reality might be, right? What's your plan? What would you like to choose? You can choose this or this or this. Okay, it sounds like you've got a plan. Again, you're inserting the words and the vocabulary that you're going to use when things go sideways. What's your plan? This is our plan. This is your choice. This is our decision, right? Okay, so you make a plan. And then next, what are the logical consequences? If the Legos are all over the floor and we can't get them back into the bin, we'll try it again next week or tomorrow or another time. And then when it's time to bring that out again, you give a clear presentation, clear guidelines, expectations about here's where, when, and how we play with Legos. It's like this. Now, speaking of Legos, I'm thinking of a particular child a while back, and it has to do with Legos. And so we had a basket, it was about shoebox size basket full of Legos. You probably know the problem right now. And a child on several occasions would dump out all of the Legos onto a table. When it was time to clean it up, you know what happened? Whoosh, and the Legos flew everywhere. You know how little they are. You know how it hurts when you step on them. You know, if you know, you know. Okay, so the logical consequence was that we had to work together, we got them cleaned up eventually, and then we adjusted the environment, right? So instead of having 5,000 Legos, we had a smaller basket that had maybe 30 or 40 of them. Manageable. Get this, when the child dumped them out the next day and it was time to clean up, he had the skills. I can pick up 40 Legos and put them back in the basket. I really can't pick up 3,000 million of them. I'm overwhelmed. I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but I can't do it. So I'm just gonna fling them everywhere. Okay, so a logical consequence might be that there's an adjustment made in the environment, right? That material might not be available for a little while. We'll try again tomorrow, or we'll try again this afternoon, or we'll try again whenever. Remembering to try again, and when it's time to try again, repeat what the expectations are, right? Here are the Legos. It's a smaller basket of Legos. That might be easier. What do you think, right? Okay, so logical consequences, important to remember. that the consequence matches the behavior, right? If children are throwing mud on the car of a neighbor, which happened at a school I worked with, the logical consequence is that you got to clean it up. And there were a lot of steps to that. We had to go get water in a bucket and wash rags. We had to knock on the door of our neighbor, let them know what we were doing. That was a tough one, but that was a logical consequence that matched the behavior. If this mess happens, then clean it up. If you hit your friend, what can you do to repair that relationship? If you throw Legos everywhere, then we'll try again with fewer Legos. You see? Okay. And the last thing to remember is to beware of your mud puddle. Yeah. So I've said that about 100 times. You remember what your mud puddle is, you know what it looks like, and beware that when these behaviors creep in to your classroom experience, often that activates us because we're human. So notice the activators, notice the indicators that you are beginning to lose your cool. Take a step, take a break, whatever it is that you need to do to notice the mud puddle and step out of the mud puddle. Okay, so I want to talk briefly about choices, about making choices. So practicing making fun choices ahead of time. Yep. If this, that, or worm or beetle, chocolate, vanilla, right? Would we have the lights on or off during lunch? Shall we have a picnic outside or eat lunch inside? Where are the places where they can make choices ahead of time? Never give them a choice if there's not a choice, right? I'm thinking about, okay, if you have scooters or bikes at your tricycles or something on your playground, is there a choice or is there not a choice to wear a helmet or not, right? There are reasons for some of the decisions that you make as a teacher that there's really not a choice. There's not a choice that we put on our rain boots before we go outside. There's not a choice that you wear a helmet if you're going to be on the scooter. There's not a choice that we all go outside at the same time, right? So think about those times and places where there aren't choices. How powerful would it be if you had conversations about that ahead of time, right? I'm just curious, thinking about right now how that small group gathering or a larger group gathering might unfold when you talk about where we have choices and where we don't have choices, right? We don't have a choice because it's the law to wear your seatbelt in the car. There's really not a choice to wear a seatbelt or not wear a seatbelt, right? Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what they would say and what they would think, where they have a choice and where there's not a choice. Interesting conversation starter about working together as a community, about democracy, about law, about, okay. I could go off on another rabbit trail here. I'd be curious to hear how you might present that concept, where you have a choice and where you don't have a choice. Okay, next, choices again. We want to keep the choices age appropriate and limited. Right? Imagine when you go to a restaurant and you get the menu and it's about this big and it's 10 pages. Yeah, you could be just overwhelmed and not know what to do, not know what to order. Or you stick with your same order that you get every single time. And then you go to a different restaurant and it's a one pager and you have a few appetizers, a few entrees, a few desserts, and your choices are more limited. And sometimes that can be comforting, especially for a young child. I can be easily overwhelmed by all the choices and all the things that I can choose in my classroom because there are, I want to touch and play with everything, right? So think about the times and the places where we offer choices and how many do we offer, right? Which shirt do you want to wear? And the drawer is full of, 20 different t-shirts, right? Maybe for a young child, we'd say, would you like to wear your red shirt or your blue shirt? Or your red shirt, your blue shirt, or your green shirt? As they grow in their skill of making choices, you can add more variants, right? Okay, next. And this one's tricky. Once a child makes a choice, stick with it. And this is where I might hear, okay, Amy, I want to be flexible. And sometimes, we could change our mind because it's being human. That's life. We can change our mind. We can make a choice and then do something different. Okay, that's true. And remember, young children are still learning that skill, which is kind of an advanced skill. Weighing the pros and cons of this decision. I'm going to change my decision here. Does it have impact, or does it influence or affect other people? I have to keep that in mind too. So when a child makes a choice, I'm going to wear my red boots, or I'm going to choose this table. Oh, wait, no, I don't want this table. I want that table. Yeah, you chose, this is our decision. This is our choice here. We can make another choice after lunch, or when you're finished with that puzzle, you can choose another table, but this is your choice. That can be tricky, and we want to be nuanced here as educators, because we want to be realistic that sometimes we do change our mind, right? Do you want carrots or broccoli at snack? I want carrots. Great. And you go, you don't have carrots, you have broccoli and cucumber. So sometimes you make a choice and then you have to shift because you're out of carrots, right? Okay. We want to make sure that maybe we do that less than more, so that we remain consistent. The child knows what to expect until they get the experience and skill under their belt, and they've had opportunity to practice flexibility and gain that skill of flexibility, because life will require us to be flexible. Okay, next, about the choices. Choices must be okay for you. I've seen time and time again, you probably have too, where you offer choices and then they choose something that you really wish that they didn't. Are you ready to go, or do you want to stay a little bit longer? I want to stay. And you're thinking to yourself, well, we got to go. So, darn, we offered a choice when there really wasn't one. Or I offered a choice and one of them really wasn't okay for me or okay for the community. So that could be a tricky one, but something important to remember. Now, logical consequences. Now, if you haven't paused in a minute to take a stretch, I really recommend that you do that right now. I feel like I've been talking a lot and we haven't had a pause. So now's a good time to pause. I'm going to have some water and we'll get started back again. So if you haven't paused to go stretch your body or go get some water, go do that right now. We'll be right here when you come back. Okay, we're back. Logical consequences. Here's some points to remember as you're deciding what would be a logical consequence for that particular behavior. Okay, some things to think about. You want to choose that one not minding behavior you want to change at a time. Just choose one. Next, enlist another adult. Is there a co-teacher or a family member or somebody else in the child's life that you can come in, bring in to support you on that, right? Next is to remember that the child is the one that feels the discomfort, not you. And is the consequence directly related to the behavior, or does it not make sense? Oh, we poured the water on the floor, then we can't go outside. Okay, does it make sense or does it not make sense? Okay, sometimes we can have a consequence or decide on a consequence, lay out a consequence when we are dysregulated ourselves. And that's when we are more apt to make a mistake or to create a consequence that doesn't make any sense. Gosh, we've all done it, right? Okay, so find your calm place, find your happy place when you decide what that consequence would be. Now, you may have, when we did a pause to write earlier, you may have already decided what would be the consequence to that routine not minding behavior that you see quite frequently. If you haven't done that yet, pause right now and go back to those behaviors and go ahead and decide what are going to be the consequences. If this, then what, right? If this, then this. That's a great phrase to use. If you throw your shoes, then what? What's the consequence? Okay. Next, make sure the loss of privilege is short-lived, right? So for younger children, having to wait a week to get that puzzle back is a really long time. What about maybe this afternoon we could try again, or maybe tomorrow we can try again, right? So consider, how long are you making the consequence carry on? Does it lose its impact over time? Yeah. When the consequence has an end, they're able to try again, and when they're successful, oh, that feels really good. They're not reminded, oh yeah, I messed up, I did that thing, and now I can't sit where I want, or I can't sit with my friend for snack, right? Give the opportunity to practice, to try again, and to get it right. Okay, so here's a pause. So feel free to pause and write down what those logical consequences would be to those behaviors earlier, if you haven't done so already. Deep breath. Stretch if you haven't stretched in a bit. Now let's talk about aggressive behavior. Often these behaviors are activators for us as an adult. We don't want to see children hurt or hit or kicked or punched or scratched or pinched or any of that. These kinds of behaviors are common to activate our own emotions and our own big thoughts, okay? Let's talk about the definition of this and what do we mean when we say a particular behavior is aggressive, okay? So aggressive behaviors are actions that deliberately cause harm to others. There's a deliberate intention to hurt another person or a thing, something, right? It's not to be confused with boisterous play, right? It's easy to see wrestling on the playground or on the nap mats or in the middle of the classroom as aggressive behavior, right? What language are we using to describe that behavior to family when we have to call a family because somebody did get poked in the eye and it hurt? Was it an aggressive act, or did play get really rough and somebody's finger got put in somebody's eye? Right? It's not funny, and I think I'm laughing or smiling because it's so easy to slip into and to make the mistake that, oh, this is aggressive behavior. That kid meant to hurt that child, right? It's important to check ourselves, to check our own inner perspective, to check our own bias, to check our own story that we've told ourselves about this particular situation or this particular child. And are we labeling this behavior accurately, or are we inaccurately labeling it based on our own stuff, right? That's a tricky one and an important one for us to engage in constantly. That we don't learn it and we got it, but it's a lifelong checking and rechecking of ourselves, okay? So some examples of aggressive behavior, right, would look like this. Two children on the playground, they both want a red ball, and they both have their hands on it, and there's back and forth and back and forth, and you see the face become really angry, right? The eyebrows are knit, the face gets set like this, and somebody gets the ball, and the other child, you could see the big emotion come, and then a punch happens or a shove happens, right? They shove the child down on the ground, take the ball, and run. Did they intend to cause harm? Maybe, and maybe not. Maybe they didn't have the skill yet to negotiate turn taking, right? Note to self, teach that skill, right? Or group of children are together and they're talking and playing, and one says to another child, well, you can't come to my birthday party. Oh, to a kindergartner or to a 5-year-old, that's like a dagger in the heart, right? Or they might tell us when they're angry at us, well, yeah, well, you can't come to my birthday party, or you can't come to my house for a sleepover. Ooh, those are big words that children are figuring out. How powerful are my words? So there's physical aggression and that social verbal aggression that we see young children are playing around with. They're experimenting with. What kind of response is this going to get from that person, right? Do I intend for that person to feel sad or mad or upset, right? Or am I still figuring out how to express my displeasure or my own emotion, right? So this one's complicated. You can always come back to, was that a deliberate act to hurt? Checking our own biases and checking our own story that we're telling ourselves. When we could say, yes, that was an intention to hurt, then what are we going to do? So when aggressive behavior happens, here's what. So recovery time. Recovery time is another word for timeout, and timeout has a bad reputation because it's often misused. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. Sometimes you'll hear, you go to timeout. Okay, well, you little kid, then you just take yourself to timeout, or some variation of that. Sometimes, oftentimes, when you hear it with that tone, who needs the timeout? Me, the teacher. I need a timeout from you, not the child, right? But when we can take a look at how can we use that concept in a way that's supportive of the child and not punitive to the child. So recovery time is to get out of a situation that is causing the dysregulation and the big emotion to explode, right? If you're thinking about, or if you use the language around zones of regulation, it's when you move from yellow to orange to red, right? So I need help from another person, and another person, another adult will come and help me. When I'm in the red, I am actively, I'm out of control. My lid is flipped. I'm in the red zone. An adult will help me. Okay, so recovery time is come stand by me. Come sit here. You can sit on the ottoman or here. Giving clear direction, and you've already had conversations with your class beforehand of what happens when this happens. Where do we go? Right? I knew a teacher who had the fluffiest pink bathroom carpet they've ever seen. It was super, I don't know where she got it, but it was the comfiest, softest, coziest rug. And that was for when a child became aggressive or was in the red zone. Let's go pull out the pink mat. It was a soft place to land. It was comforting. It helped a child get comfortable and take some deep breaths. And if their body was tight and tense, that the cushion of that pink bathroom mat was super useful in that moment. So go get yourself a pink fluffy bathroom mat. Now, a child might refuse to go to recovery time, and that recovery time can be by you. Consider who is the best role model and the best person to practice co-regulation with in that classroom. It's probably you. Now, some days it's going to be harder than others because we might be dysregulated or have hidden unmet needs or are in our sabotage and our, you know what I mean? So, okay, I have to, if I have a child who is frequently aggressive, I have a responsibility to take care, to be self-compassionate, to do some self-care so that I could show up and assist this child. So that recovery time might be by me. And we're gonna breathe together. And often I don't say anything. When a child's been aggressive and they come stand by me, I might only say, come stand by me, or by me, or my hand. And they come, I don't say anything, but I take deep breaths. Now, I have had a child who has actually said, stop taking deep breaths. It was hard to not laugh, and they were right. They knew exactly what I was doing, and they were not about it. They were still really, really mad, and they were not ready to take a deep breath because they were furious. Okay, so you got me in that point. was trying so hard to regulate and, role model taking deep breaths. Yeah. So have a few different ideas in your pocket. Maybe it's that you come with me. I'm really thirsty. Would you like some water? Can I get you some water? I'm going to get myself some tea. Would you like a cup of tea too? So the child needs you at that point during recovery time. Now, every child is different. So it may be that recovery time for this particular child is to go by themselves. Do you have that spot? Do you have that pink fluffy bath mat? Do you have a space that's uninteresting and but has the tools that they can use to take deep breaths, to read a book, to not be interrupted by anybody else because they're still really mad or with a big emotion? If a child refuses, then broken record by me, stand by me, physical assist. I'm going to help you with my what? Spatula hands. All of this, you've gotten this, that we must keep our cool. Okay, variation on this with children who are older, we want to move closer with no eye contact. Because when I'm dysregulated and I'm aggressive, then a direct eye contact can escalate the situation, because this can be confrontational, and that's not what we're looking for, right? Okay, we're going to forecast our actions. I'm going to take your hand. We're going to walk over here. Here we are walking here, we're going this way. We're going to get some water, right? I'm thirsty. Let's go get some water. Let's do this, right? And then, of course, beware of your mud puddle. Okay, let's see. Oh, I think I've already talked about this, talking about recovery time. It's for children over 3, because remember, their brains are still connecting all those neural synapses. Recovery time in, like, over there in the cozy corner is for children who are over 3. Children who are under 3, you might bring them to you, right? Come sit beside me, or sit on my lap, or come, right? And you are that mossy rock, right? You're that solid, consistent, reliable, calm, peaceful, but clear and kind place that they can depend on, right? Recovery time works when we use it the very first time. So all you procrastinators out there, this one might be hard. You want to act the first time of that aggressive behavior happens, every time. You want to keep it short, right? Do you see that they are regulated? Or has their breathing slowed and deepened? Is their body more calm? Is their face relaxed? So we're looking at their body, we're listening to their words and the tone. So remember the pie for them too. Okay. Uninteresting yet safe space. Use as little talking as possible, keeping your own cool. And when it's over, here's like the key. Drop it. Be pleasant. Don't mention it again. It can be difficult when we feel ourselves using that language that maybe we heard as a kid. You always do this. Why are you always hitting your friends? Nobody likes that, right? That kind of negative talk and that kind of rehashing of what just happened is rarely useful, right? There will be a time when you can teach into that lacking skill. However, not in that moment and not directly after recovery time. Give them some dignity to reintegrate. And you can talk about some skills later without bringing up, hey, remember when you did that thing? Remember when you bit your friend? Remember when you spit on my face? Not helpful, not useful. So when it's over, drop it, be pleasant, don't speak of it again. So now's the time to pause and to write your thoughts about this. So do you have some routine not minding behaviors that creep up? Which one do you want to start with first? What tools are you going to use? Are there some consequences that you want to write about? And then about aggressive behavior. Is there something that's a common recurrence in your classroom? What can you do? And I'm thinking about the triangle again. Is there a lagging skill? Are you remaining regulated? Does the environment kind of foster opportunity to go into aggressive behavior? Okay, so hit pause, write your writing, come back when you're ready. Okay, deep breath, we're back. Can you believe it? We're nearing the end. So here we are. Our goals at the very beginning of this webinar series were this. We wanted to leave feeling more confident, more clear, and with some skills to remain calm in my own classroom leadership. Another goal was to look at some old patterns and decide which ones don't work for us anymore, and decide what are we going to replace them with. What are some new ones that do work for us? Next, another goal was to create more peace in our classroom and to have some practical ideas and tools that can put in place right away. The last two webinars for sure gave you some really clear practical tools, right? And in each episode, if you want to go back and re-listen to, wait, what did we talk about? Connecting during neutral times? Wait, let me look back on my sabotages again. Feel free. Okay. I want to end this webinar with this reflection that I use a lot because I just think it's beautiful. And it's a reminder for all of us to pause and take a moment and just breathe. So put your things down, put your feet on the floor, take a deep breath, and just let this wash over you.
I get really mad when it's me a lot. I don't like it when you say you don't want to play with me. When I'm mad, my brain can get a headache and it can start hurting. Your blood keeps pumping because you're like really mad. And you start to get sweaty because you're getting really, really mad. And then when you start getting really mad, you turn red. When your body can't really control yourself, mad just takes over your body. I just get out of control. It's kind of like if you had a jar and then the jar would be your brain and then you put glitter in the jar and that would be how you would feel. If you shook up the jar and the glitter went everywhere, that would be how your mind looks. And it's like spinning around and then you don't have any time to think. And you sometimes punch stuff and people when you don't really mean it. When I get angry, I feel it in my heart. I really don't like when I get angry. The amygdala really reacts, but the prefrontal cortex tries to keep it down. When I feel like I want to, get really angry and I just sometimes, take deep breath. First you find a place where you can be alone, then you find some way to relax and calm down. When I need to calm down, I take deep breaths. I breathe in through my nose. Sometimes I close my eyes or just take deep breaths. It's calming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain. It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your brain. My brain slows down and then I feel more calm and then I'm ready to speak to that person.
Hmm. Right. So on that note, I wanted to end um, letting you know how important it is for us to take a deep breath throughout our day, throughout the times that we're learning, throughout webinars we're watching. All right. So if you have any questions or any thoughts, any particular situations that you want help with now, you know how to reach me. I want to say thank you so much. Oh yeah, your plan. What's one thing from today's webinar that you plan to do in the coming weeks? Write it down, put a date on it. You know what to do. So give yourself a moment, pause if you need to, and come back after you've written it down, okay? Okay, so you paused. You've seen these books are available to help you as tools in your classroom to help teach children how to regulate their emotions, how to teach into those skills, right? And the Spark Creative Adventure for Teachers is something designed and created especially for you as educators. It's packed with tools that you may need in the classroom for yourself, in your relationships with colleagues. And there's also a section for, okay, what do I do with families? Full of tools, full of questions for you to put you in a mind space to think for yourself and to think about what's your plan, what skills do you need, what do I need to do, how do I prepare. It's all in there for you. Thank you so much again for joining me. I appreciate you. It was an investment of your time to take this entire webinar. It was long. I know it. I know it. So I appreciate that. I have deep respect for you giving yourself permission and the time to learn and grow and to try something new, to give yourself permission to think about some things that we talked about over these 5 webinars. What did you think? What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? That's also important to know. Like, I don't know what I think about that, Amy. Great. I'd love to hear about it. So here are the ways that you can connect with me and to reach out to me. I'd love to hear it. And I would love to hear your feedback on how I can better serve you, what support looks like for you, and how I can step in to help you be the most important, the perfect, important adult that you want to be for the children that you love. All right. Until next time, take care. Bye.